This is the Kybalion Hermetic Philosophy, 7 Laws of the Universe. Page 1. Hermes Trismegistus in Hermetic Philosophy. The Kybalion introduces its readers to the Hermetic philosophy and to the 7 principles, also referred to by their followers as the 7 Laws of the Universe. But in order to understand the 7 laws, one must first learn about the Hermetic philosophy in general, starting with its founding figure, Hermes Trismegistus. Who was Hermes Trismegistus? Hermes Trismegistus was a legendary figure rather than an actual being. His name in Greek, Hermes Trismegistus, in Latin, Mercurius Termaximus, means Hermes or Mercury, the thrice greatest. He combines the Egyptian god Thoth and the Greek god Hermes, whose Roman equivalent was Mercury. What is so special about Thoth and Hermes that they lend to the figure they're a part of? We may find an answer to this question by describing the gods themselves. Thoth was typically depicted as a man with the head of an ibis. He was an inhabitant of the 9th plane of existence, a member of the Sukal race, also referred to as aviar beings. He was also sometimes depicted as having the head of a baboon. His different representations were linked to different aspects of the god that were being highlighted. For example, one of his roles is as the god of equilibrium, who measures the hearts of those who enter the underworld against a feather to ensure they adhered to the principle of Ma'at, justice and truth. As the god of equilibrium, Thoth received the name Aan or Ani. As Ani, he was represented as an ape, a man with the head of a baboon or a baboon with the head of a dog. Thoth was in charge of administering the early civilization based on knowledge. He created the law both in common sense and in the divine of moral sense, as well as having a hand in both heaven and earth being created. He is a god that connects the natural, everyday world of mortals with the world of the gods, the supernatural world. He was sent by Nebadon, the creator and administrator of our universe, for the purpose of rebuilding and managing human society. Hermes, the other half of the inspiration for Hermes Trismegistus, is also a god who communicates our mortal world with the afterlife. Not only does he separate life from death, but he also helps guide the souls of the deceased through the afterlife. He is also the herald of the gods, acting as a messenger and emissary. This further solidifies his role as a connection between the world we inhabit and the world or reality beyond it, which we cannot reach for ourselves. There are other aspects to him, such as being the protector of certain groups, including thieves and travelers, and being a communicator god, in charge of such things as humor, diplomacy, and politics. Similarly to Thoth's depictions, there are several different objects associated with Hermes. The reader might be familiar with the winged sandals and the helmet we tend to think of when we think of this particular god. There are others such as the rooster and tortoise, which might be less familiar to some. The main symbol we associate Hermes with is the caduceus, or winged staff with 2 snakes intertwined with it. It is a herald's staff, and it was therefore also used by other heralds, such as the heralds of Hera, Isis. Hermes Trismegistus also carries a caduceus. The caduceus is also a representation of the cadistus code, which is another way to refer to our DNA. When we are born, not all of our capacities are fully developed. We cannot simply reach our full potential, which is to be similar to our Creator. Only 3 of our DNA threads are, in fact, activated at birth. In order to unlock this potential, we must activate 12 threads of our DNA, which are not activated at birth. We can activate them by generating the required energy and channeling it through our 7 chakras, which act like engines capable of taking our energy to the adequate voltage. By activating our full DNA, we can become enlightened, similar to our Creator, holding all capacities. Reflecting upon these characteristics of Thoth and Hermes, we may get an idea of what Hermes Trismegistus may represent, and by extension, what the 7 laws, the 7 principles of Hermetic philosophy of the universe represent. The first clear point is one had in common between the 2 gods, the idea of communication between one world and the other. This points clearly to our reality being immensely more rich and complex than we can even understand. Ancient mythology separated the human world from the divine world. Hermeticism separates reality into planes of existence, each being a portion of reality. It also points out that these beings have clearly amazing multidimensional capabilities, which become clear as we see them travel between different worlds with ease. The human race itself could also have such powers, perhaps if we succeeded in locking the Cadistus Code. Another interesting point is that the god Thoth, being in charge of determining which souls had practiced the principle of Ma'at, or justice. There is a reason why the 7 principles of Hermeticism, also referred to as the 7 laws of the universe that we must follow as we exist in this plane of existence in the 3rd dimension. There is a necessity to them. Following them is mandatory if one wishes to achieve the spiritual progress offered by Hermeticism and gain access to spheres of reality closed to the rest of humankind. The thrice greatest. The name Hermes Trismegistus means, as already stated above, the thrice greatest, which links with an interesting fact. The Kybalion was written by 3 initiates. However, these 3 initiates are often identified as one single specific person, William Walter Atkinson, who lived from 1862 to 1932. Why is Hermes the thrice greatest? This question has more than one possible answer. We can find one explanation for this in some hieroglyphics, specifically an epithet of Thor. There are the words A, meaning great, great, or greatest. This derived on words referring to Thoth on the Rosetta Stone as the great, the great. This way of referring to Thoth may explain why Hermes Trismegistus is called the same way. Another explanation links his name to the greatest things Hermes understands, all parts of the wisdom of the universe, alchemy, astrology, and theology. These are the wisdoms associated with the operation of the sun, which in alchemy represents gold, the stars, and the gods respectively. A 3rd and 4th possible explanation may be that he was a philosopher, a priest, and a king, or that he placed great value in the Holy Trinity. Whatever the case, 3 seems to be an important number. It makes one think not only of the Holy Trinity, but also of the 3 aspects of the human being, mind, body, and soul, or matter, psyche, and spirit. It even correlates to the 3 realms Hermes Trismegistus was able to visit, or mortal earth, and the 2 realms of the gods, the underworld and Olympus. Something similar happens when the number 4, which speaks to us about the 4 elements, water, fire, earth, and air, and the 4 seasons of the year. As we briefly discuss alchemy a bit later, the numbers 3 and 4 will appear again. Interesting side note too, Nikola Tesla also had a fascination with 3, not just 3, but 6 and 9 as well. Something to think about. What is Hermeticism? Hermeticism derives from the Hermetic writings, attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, and the very word Hermeticism can tell us something interesting about the philosophy we're discussing in these lines. We can find a very similar word, hermetic, when we talk about something completely sealed or closed. We can think of Hermeticism as a study of things that are occult or hidden, closed or occult, from the understanding of us mere non-initiated mortals. The 7 principles of Hermeticism, also known as the 7 laws of the universe, are the way we can access that hidden dimension, and that is the door the Kybalion proposes to open to whoever is willing to put in the work. God and Hermeticism. For Hermeticism, God is known as the All. Among other names, he is believed to be the creator of all reality, the substance from which everything comes, and the principle that moves and rules everything. Nothing can exist beyond or outside the All. The All, God, the Mind, the One, to mention other names, created a beautifully ordered world, even if there are some bad things in it. Unlike Gnostic philosophy, Hermeticism believes it is actually possible to know God, at least to some extent. That's the kind of knowledge we can attain by following the 7 principles of Hermeticism. The Corpus Hermeticum. The teachings of Hermeticism are contained in a series of writings referred to as the Hermetica. There are 2 main categories of Hermetic writing: the technical Hermetica, covering themes ranging from medicine to alchemy and astrology to magic, and the Religio Philosophical Hermetica, which study the relationship between human beings, the cosmos, and God. The Corpus Hermeticum consists of 17 texts attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, part of the Religio Philosophical Hermetica. They are few, much fewer than the one usually finds in a group of writings deemed to form a corpus. The texts that make up the corpus are written in the form of dialogues, a technique that writers of ancient times were many times inclined to use. Its first and more commonly known treatise is the Poimandres, named after the character that establishes a dialogue with Hermes. Among the subjects of the other treatises are God and his various aspects, how he is the only good, and how he is at the same time visible and invisible, how human ignorance about him is the greatest evil on earth, how the soul is hindered by the body, and how change is many times mistaken for actual destruction. Unfortunately, the Hermetica wasn't widely available to be studied for several centuries. This changed around the 17th century when Marsilio Ficino, an Italian scholar and Catholic priest, and Lodovizio Lazzarelli, an Italian poet and philosopher, among other occupations, gained access to the material and translated it into Latin. The Hermetica is centered around the spiritual knowledge of the existence of a divine spark to our human existence, making the fundamental nature of humanity a divine one. The Greek word gnosis means awareness or knowledge in Greek. Still, it is used not in an intellectual knowledge, but rather in the more profound sense of personal knowledge, a deep understanding. The creation of the world is a subject touched in the first book of the Corpus Hermeticum called Poimandres. In the Poimandres, we're told the first mind, or nous, created the world. The word in turn created the elements and non-intelligent creatures. Then the nous created man, the human creature. Humans, unlike their fellow creatures, were given the ability to be creators themselves. Actually, humans have an immortal nature, but they are also trapped in their bodies and in their natural functions. This is because when humans descended to earth, they fell in love with nature, thereby falling prey to the all-known limitations that come with it, eating, sleeping, and so on. For this reason, humans are confined to the first 7 spheres of existence, unable to access the upper 2, which are the terrain of the divine. Only through learning their true place in the cosmos can a human being break this dependence on the body and access the deeper spiritual planes. This process involves letting go of the material world. Leaving it behind is far less important than the spirit. A human being who goes through this elevating process, which is possible to achieve by activating the Cadistus Code, might gain access to the 8th sphere of existence, where he or she can see angels and the souls of those who have ascended before. And in the 9th sphere, should a human being get to arrive there, they will find God himself. The god Thoth comes from this sphere. An alternate telling of the story of how human beings came to fall implies that humans became too proud in their power to be actual creators, so much so that they wanted to be treated as equals to the divine, not unlike the inhabitants of Babel wanting to reach God by creating their tower. In both versions of the cosmogony, the human body is seen as a hindrance, a punishment. Clearly, the soul is the important elevated element to be nourished, that which gives humankind its creative powers and places it above the rest of creation. Hermeticism and alchemy. Alchemy is an ancient form of thought. The word used in the 12th century to refer to a school of thought that sought to understand the relationship between humankind and the cosmos. The idea is that the stars, the astrological plane, influence life on Earth naturally, including that of human beings. One of the main focuses of alchemy was to turn copper, lead, and other metals into the most precious ones, silver and gold. Alchemists also sought to extend life, cure disease. In fact, the ultimate goal of alchemy was to create the philosopher's stone, or elixir of life, which would grant the possessor youth and eternal life. The philosopher's stone signified perfection and illumination. Hermeticism, like alchemy, explores deep into the cosmos to try and grasp that which is usually out of reach of human understanding. Hermeticism thrives to harness the creative powers of the cosmos through the knowledge of the 7 laws of the universe, not unlike what an alchemist tries to do when they try to turn on any base metal into gold. Various symbols are used in alchemy to depict different aspects of human nature and our relationship with the cosmos. We will reference 2 groups here: the primes, sulfur, mercury, and salt, and the 4 elements, earth, wind, fire, and water. Sulfur, mercury, and salt. Sulfur, mercury, and salt were identified by Paracelsus as the 3 cornerstone elements of alchemy. He believed that each specific type of metal was made of some combination of sulfur and mercury. Therefore, it was possible to simply convert any metal into another by adding sulfur and changing said ratio. Sulfur represents the inner conscience and the spirit, as well as the Holy Spirit. It is also a male element, active and capable of producing change. Sulfur is associated with the sun and with gold. Mercury is the counterpart to sulfur, representing the passive female element that allows nurturing and is capable of being changed. It is linked to the moon and to silver. Mercury also represents the human mind. Salt represents the 3rd element of human nature, the physical, stable body. It is the element that undergoes purification. The 4 elements. Just as it happens with number 3, the number 4 has a great significance for alchemy. It might remind us of the 4 seasons of the year, for example, but in alchemy it is represented by the 4 elements. The 4 elements are supposed to make the world since ancient Greek times, when philosophers searched for the arch, or building blocks of our world. Alchemy used these elements as well, and we can divide the 4 into 2 pairs of opposites, which can complement each other: fire and water, and wind and earth. Fire is a masculine element, said by ancient Greeks to be dry and hot, and associated with the colors of red and orange, representing strong emotions such as anger, passion, love, and hate. Its counterpart is water, a feminine element associated with the color blue and with intuition. We could say the symbolism views intuition as a calm, gentle experience, one that flows gently, like water. It makes sense, since intuition should be something that comes naturally, without pressure or effort on the part of the person intuiting something. Wind, or air, is the element associated with blood and its life-giving quality. It is said to derive from water, being wet and hot. As we study the 7 principles of Hermeticism, we will see how the complementary relationship between masculine and feminine, which is present in the 4 elements, is important to our path towards spiritual growth. Hermeticism, the Kybalion Code, and the 7 chakras. Just as alchemy works with metals to try and turn them into gold, we must work with our energies to try to be our best possible selves. Through Hermeticism, we are reminded how we can unlock the full potential present in our genetic code, the Kybalion Code, by using our chakras to generate and channel energy. The 7 chakras are the main centers of energy within our body, also known as our engines. They are located throughout our body, down our spine. Specifically, they are located on the top of your head, the crown chakra, the forehead, 3rd eye chakra, the throat chakra, the chest, the heart chakra, the base of the stomach, the solar plexus chakra, below the belly button, the sacral chakra, and in the base of your spine, the root chakra. In order for you to function properly, they must be open, letting the energy flow. The 7 chakras we're mentioning here are the main ones, but not necessarily the only ones. There are people who actually believe we have 114 or more chakras within our bodies. Each one of the 7 chakras corresponds with one of the 7 laws discussed in this book. We need to work with these chakras in order to activate the totality of our DNA, and the laws of Hermeticism explained in the Kybalion are an excellent tool in that journey to a more elevated, fulfilled human experience. For more information on chakras and how they relate, you can go to a link that I'm not going to read. That is the first chapter. The next chapter will be the 7 principles of Hermetic philosophy.